portion of the call is the Neighborhood Food Network call, and we want to thank everybody for being on. We've had some extra people jump on. The Neighborhood Food Network is out to create national food security one street at a time, and we're doing that by fostering community health and preparedness, and supporting people to grow food on their street, connect with their neighbors, grow food on your street, backyards, front yards, rooftops, balconies, and to source food locally so that should there be a crisis and a power outage, we have access to local food. Because if you think about it, when you get on an airplane, you have an oxygen mask, you have a seat cushion, you have a life jacket, there's a plan how to get out of the plane. You don't want it to crash, but you have a plan if it does, right? We don't have a plan right now across our nation for if the power goes out. There's no plan. So we kind of need to step up and do that. And in addition to that, or beyond the whole crisis type of situation, people are really excited about taking on the Neighborhood Food Network because some people are just sharing and swapping food with each other, harvesting peaches and canning together and meeting their neighbors that they've never met before, like Carol from California. And somebody else here locally in Nashville said, oh, I want to do this. I don't think my very affluent neighbors are super concerned about a crisis, right? A power outage, but they might come together and grow food for a local food bank. So I was like, wow, what a great idea. That street could adopt a food bank, right? We could have these signs that say Neighborhood Food Network growing for Asheville Mana Food Bank. Like, could you imagine if streets all across the country that, had the means to do this, supported a food bank with fresh produce? Oh my gosh, it would be amazing. Wouldn't that be awesome? What a great way to come together. And you get that sign after your street has produced maybe 5,000 pounds of produce, right, for a local food bank. It would be like a badge of honor. It would boost real estate too, right? It would be great. So that's what the Neighborhood Food Network is about. It's morphing as we launch this pilot program. So these other ideas, right, about sharing and swapping and supporting a food bank have come from people just like you that have come on the call. So we encourage you to start the Neighborhood Food Network on your street. It's just a matter of printing out some flyers and going to your neighbors and knocking on doors and meeting them, or leaving a flyer under their doorstep. Or you could start a Facebook page like Carol did and, invite people from there on your street and have a gathering, Saturday morning, 10 o'clock, coffee and bagels or something, or coffee and fruit, and start talking about how to grow food and planning things on your street. Okay. So, let's see some questions. Okay. Samantha can get a school lunch sample. Very good. Thank you so much. And do what you can to help raise the money. Thank you. And just email us when you get a sample, because we need to know, so that you got one, and mark it down so we can send you the lab information where to send it to once we get the funding for it. And if you do donate for this, please somehow in the notes or comments tell us, or email me, I just sent you $1,000 and I want it to go to the school lunches. Okay. Because we need to make sure that it's going to the right place. And yes, you just freeze that bag of food, like the main thing, like a chicken sandwich or the pizza. You don't have to do like messy macaroni and cheese, right? You can just do the main food thing and put on it the city and the state, your name, and your phone number. So it doesn't need to be the school's name. We don't care about which school this came from because it's all a national food thing, right? We're not shaming out. We're not out to shame schools. This is out to get the national food supply transitioning to non-GMO and organic. So, okay. So any other questions about the food, the school lunch testing?
How do you, I don't have any kids in school, so I was wondering, could I go to a public school and say, can I buy a school lunch?
No, it's got to be a student in the school.
Okay.
Yeah. So you just ask some friends if you can, for them to go and do that. And the kid doesn't have to normally buy school lunches. They can just do it that one day. And they can do whatever they want with it. They're not stealing, right? They pay for it. You can stick it in your backpack in a cooler or just in your lunchbox. They can take it home. They can eat it. They can do whatever they want with it. So it's theirs. They're not doing, nobody's doing anything wrong by taking this home to test. So, any other questions? No? Okay. Well, before we get to Ann and Carol, I just want to share, Ann and Mark Doudlah, I just want to share one more article that came to my attention this morning from Kelly Ryerson, Glyphosate Girl. I don't know if she's on tonight, but this was a very interesting article that pertains to the Neighborhood Food Network. So I want to show this to you. It's from Civil Eats. And you may not be aware that a lot of states do not allow their, people who own their own land to have a garden like this in their front yard. So there's only 2 states that have passed right to garden laws. And the Civil Eats article is asking, will other people, will other states follow? And the story covers a woman, and there's several people, but covers a woman who wanted to show her kids how to grow food. So she put some garden boxes in her front lawn, and she got notices and threatened to be arrested and put in jail for 96 days. Ridiculous. So she went to the news, the media went public with it, and the city council rescinded their threat. But this is what's happening. Most people wouldn't fight it like she did. Most people wouldn't go public. They would just be like, oh, okay, I'll take out my garden beds. I don't want any trouble. So this is what's happening across the country.
And that garden was beautiful.
Yeah. Yes. Yeah. A lot of them are just beautiful gardens, especially if you have a raised bed. It looks all, orderly and all that. So they're saying it's very difficult to get reform passed like this, to be able to garden in your front yards. But folks, it needs to be done. We need to have access to local food, and not just because of a potential, power crisis or whatever, but when you eat food that you've just picked from the garden, you're getting like 1,000% more antioxidants than you would if it's been sitting on the shelf for, a week. And so you are giving yourself medicine. You are giving yourself cancer fighting enzymes and properties, in your food when you eat food that's just, picked from your garden. So please consider, if you come up against those types of laws, to band together with your neighbors. Another good reason for a neighborhood food network, right? Band together with your neighbors and fight those ridiculous laws. Okay. All right. So next we have Anne is going to talk about some green powders. But since we have Mark on the call and we have so many of you, Mark, are you willing to answer some questions and be our resident expert today for questions about growing food?
Sure. X is a has-been and a spurt's a drip under pressure. I'd be happy to.
Okay. Thank you so much. We're just always so happy to see you, and you're just a font of knowledge. So we appreciate that. Does anybody have any questions? Oh, somebody had a question about blackberries. What was that question? Can you unmute yourself and ask that question?
That was Frankie. That was Frankie, and she can't unmute herself. She says, anybody know how to care for blackberries? And I was thinking my woods next to me are just overloaded with blackberries, and I've never cared for them at all. So I didn't know they needed care.
Mark, do you know anything about caring for blackberries?
Sorry, I'm not going to be able to help you on that frontier.
Okay. All right. Yes. All I know about blackberries is that they need full sun. They need a place to grow up on something. And if they can grow up something, a wall or a bushes or fence or something, they could grow 20 feet high. I mean, blackberries just will grow. So you don't want to plant blackberries anywhere where you don't want them. Like they will expand, they will keep going, and they could be super invasive and just take over a whole area.
Well, I don't know about them needing full sun, because like I said, my woods are loaded with them, but I am constantly cutting them back from my property because
you can just mow them down and then they'll come back up next year. Right. So they will keep expanding, but they grow best under full sun. They really do. Like I said, they'll grow like a giant cascade they'll grow up, and be a huge wall of blackberries. So, and they're what was her name? Tammy, Rain Mom, that was on one of our calls before. She would go out in Oregon and Washington. They have blackberries growing everywhere there, like along the side of the street. And one year she got 50 pounds of blackberries and froze them and put them into her dog food. Lots of antioxidants. Yeah, she makes her own dog food for her golden retrievers. So, yeah.
Oh, Frankie said they might be black raspberries. I think you're right.
Oh, yours. Oh yeah, black raspberries, the shorter bushes. Yeah. Blackberries are the big, like thimble looking ones, like the size of your thumb. The small ones like that are like caps. Those are black raspberries. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, Joan.
So I've been growing lots of vegetables, and it's been a challenge in New England because we're experiencing quite a drought. And they were pretty happy for a while, but my cucumbers are now, the leaves are turning yellow, quite yellow. So what does that mean?
Mark, do you have any feedback on that? Cucumbers?
Typically, there's several things, but since it's in a dry condition, it doesn't sound like she's suffering from damping off disease. That's usually in a humid region and heavy dew in the morning. In a dry condition, a lot of times your nutrients are linked to water, right? So they flow with the water, just like, you know, your bloodstream works as well. If there's no water, it's much harder to have nutrient exchange. So irrigation certainly would be top priority to bring everything back. It also makes your microbes happy, but sounds like too, they maybe are a little anemic and don't have much nitrogen. But I would, you know, certainly try to water, but when you water, make sure the foliage dries off before it goes into nighttime, because you don't want to set yourself up to water more diseases. A little bit of compost and some other things around the root system of that would help. But yeah, sometimes when things are that far along, it's hard to really bring them all the way back to be productive.
Are cucumbers, is it like sort of the end of season now anyway for cucumbers? Would they start getting yellow because it's end of season too?
Mine are still coming in.
Yeah, have you harvested from this patch for quite a while or not at all?
No, they're growing. No, I've had cucumbers for a few weeks, and there's still lots of yellow flowers.
Oh, okay.
But I haven't done much feeding. Like, I haven't really fed them since I.
When that happened to mine, I watered them. I hand watered them with a watering can. I put in some Neptune's Harvest, and that seemed to help.
Yeah, Neptune's Harvest is great. It's a fish fertilizer.
Actually, I'm familiar. They're from Maine, so they push them a lot down here in Massachusetts.
Yeah, that's a good fertilizer. And getting some nitrogen in there is a. If you have a neighbor with chicken poop, you just soak the chicken poop in a bucket for 3 days, and then you use a cup of that water along with a gallon of water, and then you're just putting nitrogen right in the bucket.
And don't be afraid to spray the foliage and do a foliar treatment. Sometimes the fastest way into the vascular tissue is through the stomatal underneath the leaves. So you can do a foliar treatment 2 or 3 times over the period of a week, in addition to some watering and going through the root system. It takes longer to go through the root system.
One more question, Mark. Would you cut off those yellow leaves or just keep them there and hope maybe they'll come back? What do you suggest about?
It depends how far. I guess I would try a foliar application, certainly watering, foliar application, and then put some at the base of each plant. I would leave the leaves on for now. I wouldn't want to introduce any other disease or problems by cutting tissue if otherwise everything else is okay. So.
All right. Thank you so much.
And Samantha, you had a question?
I grew a whole bunch of different types of peppers this year. Usually I'm used to only growing the sweet peppers. So what happened is that I got a lot of leaves and no actual flowers and fruiting. So I read that if I prune them, they will focus more on fruit production as opposed to foliage and leaves. So I am getting some flowers now. I'm in New York, so like zone 7B. I think my first frost date is November 16th. Do I have enough time to maybe possibly getting some peppers?
I would say definitely yes. And, you know, I would play with pruning certain plants back harder, and I think you could be amazed what happens. Peppers are somewhat like tomatoes. You know, if there's too much nitrogen and phosphorus around, it's all vegetation and no fruit. So yeah, if it sounds like you have maybe a pretty rich garden.
Yeah, actually I grew them in pots this year, actually like pretty deep set window boxes in like my greenhouse area. but it's open. So there's a lot of airflow. So I didn't close it off, like it's open for the summer. And I noticed some mushroom growth in the pots. So we took them out, but I also read that that is a good sign of good, rich microbiome in the soil. So I didn't think it was too alarming, but now I'm starting to get some fruit growth, even though they're tiny, but they're coming. So I'm hoping that I get a better harvest than I have all summer, because I thought like heat is really good for hot peppers, but apparently didn't work out so well so far.
Yeah, I wouldn't give up hope. And you're absolutely right about mushrooms as an indicator species of soil health. Absolutely. So, yep. Try pruning and have some patience, and they can still come around. So, and you got quite a long time to go for your frost-free date. Ours is October 13th here in southern Wisconsin.
Good. So there's still a good amount of time for growing peppers. Good.
Yeah, and then I also read that you make sure you do want to maybe dial back on the nitrogen so it's not focusing on leaf growth and it's more focusing on fruit growth. Is that right, Mark?
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't feed, but I guess, you know, taking nutrients away is a little more difficult. Certainly you can do that with leaching, but leaching creates other kind of problems as well by flooding and you know, getting available nitrogen out of the soil solution. You can tie up with wood chips and everything, but that's pretty invasive. That's kind of hard to do. So I think the course is set. I would focus on the pruning, but yeah, I certainly wouldn't feed anymore if you still are feeding.
All right, we have a question from Auntie. We go to the barn a lot. How would we use the horse manure? Do I need to dry it or cure it first before using it as a fertilizer?
Well, let's not forget in the organic standard, there is a rule that manure cannot be applied 120 days before harvesting of any vegetables. So let's make sure that we're not putting raw manure too close to where you are harvesting anything. So that being said, if you have a rotational area of your garden that you're just growing cover crops on, I would certainly throw it on top of the cover crops lightly and use it right away. If you want to compost manure, that's great. But if you don't really have the time, I would just rake it out and put it on top of your area that is set aside for next year's growing. Now, if you careful with it, you might be able to put it between the rows and work it in. But I would be cautious of putting it too close to anything you're going to harvest.
Great point. And also, please make sure that the horse owners are feeding their horses hay not sprayed with glyphosate. A lot of hay or straw. I always get them confused, Mark. Is it hay or straw? One of them they bed on and one of them they eat. And you want to make sure that pretty much both of them are not sprayed with glyphosate. And oftentimes they are, because they say, oh, this is a weed-free, you know, hay that's great for horses. Well, it's been, the field has been sprayed with glyphosate most often.
Well, there's other chemicals too that will wipe out your garden. I can't remember it right off the top of my head, but try to find organic for sure.
Yeah. So just, it's really best if you know the horse farmer and you know that they feed them organic and they source hay and straw that has not been sprayed with glyphosate. There's all kinds of problems that have been happening to the horses and the racetrack field. They were dropping dead of heart attacks, and it's been shown that glyphosate can weaken the heart. So there's another thing, guys. We've got vaccinations going on causing myocarditis and pericarditis, and we've got kids eating glyphosate, which has been shown to cause heart damage. You know, it's like, it's just, you know, talk about inundating the EPA, right? We're inundating our kids with these toxins. Oh, all right, get me worked up. Okay, so Frankie is saying, oh, hay has seed and straw is used for bedding. Okay. Really? Oh yeah, yeah, straw, no seeds. That's what I remember getting. I got straw for the potato field to cover up the potatoes because straw has no seeds. Yeah. Okay. Any other questions for
There was a question about Delicata squash, so I kind of looked it up.
Yep.
And it said to pick it when the outer part or the rind becomes hard and turns beige with an orange hue. And to do a thumbnail test, the skin should be unable to be pierced with your thumbnail.
Okay, so it should be firm enough to not be pierced by your thumbnail. Okay, that's pretty hard squash.
But sounds like that would be a good storage squash.
Yeah, we just harvested a watermelon, and you want to wait until the spot on the watermelon is yellowish, and there's like a little, like a rough, like grainy look to it, you know, like it's almost been scratched. Sometimes there's that one of those. So yeah, let's see what else. Any other questions for Mark about gardening?
The dewormer question is important, and we're on the early side of that. Ivermectin is used in horses as well as a dewormer. Well, the same thing can happen to the good bacteria and fungi in the soil with these dewormers. So there is some studies going on in regenerative agriculture to see if these grass-fed operations like beef should be using dewormer, or if it negates the benefits they're trying to get towards soil health. So unfortunately, you know, anything that possibly can kill a parasite or take a parasite out maybe has some negative effects, possibly on soil health, depending on the mode of action and the chemistry. But I don't think we know that full answer yet, but you are right that any of the dewormers used for horses could be a concern.
So yeah, and a way to combat that, Monica Kruger showed in her study from Germany that when the animals, especially the cows, had poor gut health after consuming glyphosate, she gave them sauerkraut juice. And the sauerkraut juice in the feed absolutely supported the gut health and helped the animals to regain their health. Yeah, and of course, eliminating glyphosate from their diet was the number one thing that was shown with 30,000 pigs in Denmark when he gave them a glyphosate sprayed grains, took them off, and then gave non-glyphosate sprayed grains. And when the pigs, the sows, were having litters, they had 33% more miscarriages when they were eating glyphosate sprayed grains. So yeah, and it was multiple times he did that study. Yes, Mark.
I think part of that too, if I remember right, was a well mineralized sea salt in combination with the cabbage juice. Yep, absolutely.
With the recovery.
Fermented.
With the recovery, yes, fermented. Yes.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
All I can see is the horses eating that and then sticking their big lips out on the sauerkraut juice.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, one thing I want to mention about ivermectin too is that if you're taking it for COVID, as human beings, I'm not a doctor, but just FYI, I took it recently when I thought I was getting COVID again after traveling. You know, just like a 3-day dose, just kind of, you know, prophylactic or, you know, ahead of time or preventative, and got a UTI. And then I looked it up, and ivermectin can be connected to UTIs. So, and again, if you're talking about bacteria, you know, all that kind of stuff. So just be aware if you're taking it, take lots of other, you know, fermented foods, you know, kefirs or yogurts, or, you know, put that good bacteria back in your gut. Okay. Any other questions for Mark? Oh, wait, Mark, I have one. I just picked a bunch of blue corn. It's beautiful. I'm so excited. I wish I brought it up here, but so what's the best way? I know I could just look this up, but you're here now, so I'm gonna ask you, what's the best way to dry blue corn? And, you know, and then I have a Wonder Mill to grind it up. I'm gonna make tortillas out of it. What's the best way to dry it?
Let me ask you the first question. Are you gonna save some of that back for seed?
Absolutely. I better do that. Right.
So you need to leave it on the cob.
Okay.
And in a well ventilated place. We
Okay.
ran into this. Jason does Indian dent corn, red, white, and blue and yellow.
Beautiful.
And anyways, we started out by combining the corn, and so save back some for seed. Well, that combined seed only had about 50 to 60% germ, whereas if you leave it on the cob and dry it on the cob properly, the germ is 95 to 100. So please, any of your seed stock, leave on the cob for the following year. Many farmers used to have little things that they hooked, they stabbed the center of the cob where the pith is, and they would put their best looking corn in the attic of their house.
Mm-hmm.
And that's how they preserve. So that's what you do from the seed side.
And that's after you husk it, right? Is that, Mark, you take the husk off?
Yeah. So the other thing first, though, you want to make sure that you've achieved black layer. So black layer is when you shell off some kernels from the cob and dig into it with your thumbnail. The black layer means that there's a layer of dead cells and there is no more nutrients coming from the plant into the kernel. So at that point, that plant has put all the possible energy possible into that kernel, and it's done, and a layer of cells have blacked off or capped it off. So the kernel now is isolated from the plant. So you want to make sure that you've first gotten to black layer. You do not want to pick it like sweet corn, or you'll be really upset. So make sure it's physiologically mature. And then if you're going to mill it, like you said, I would probably put it in the Nesco dryer and dry some of it. If you have a lot, then you better put it on a fan and turn it probably 2 or 3 times a day and make sure that it gets dried out. Corn needs to get down to a minimum of 15.5% moisture. If you have a scientific scale, you can use your microwave if you have one, and the scale to determine the percent moisture. So basically you just keep drying it until the weight doesn't change anymore, and then you've gotten to 0% moisture, and you'll know where you're at. But to store corn safely, less than 15.5% moisture. Some people even go down to 13%. And when you mill your flour, please put it in the freezer afterwards. That's a live seed, right? It's respirating. There's beneficial enzymes. To keep all that preserved longer, please put it in the refrigerator, or better yet, even the freezer,
Okay.
to
I keep
preserve
the
the quality
cornmeal.
of your flour.
Okay.
I keep your cornmeal that I get from you, Mark, in my freezer.
Great, great.
Yeah.
It also solves any of the bug issues, right? We all
Yes.
get Indian meal moths and everything in our pantries, right? You never can get things sealed up perfectly. Freezer eliminates all that.
Yeah. Very good point. Any way to keep the mice away from the corn cobs that are drying in our attics?
Absolutely not. And what are they in search of? They're in search of nutrient dense food.
Yeah.
And so they're going to chase that wherever it is in the house. They
Right.
will be able to smell it rooms away and come to it. There was an interesting picture. I don't know if I can find it for you. Maybe I'll send it to you, Zen, of GMO crops,
Mhm.
corn, at a place that did seed corn, right? And then organic. The GMO corn was left completely alone by all the mice. The
Yep.
organic corn, there wasn't anything left but the cob.
They
Yep.
did the
So-
same thing with squirrels. They put one of those
Yep.
picnic benches and
Yeah, they know animals are way smarter than we are.
I
So
know.
they know what to eat, what not to eat,
Yeah.
and they know where the best nutrient dense food is, right? So
They can
absolutely.
sniff it out. Yeah. And Tia is saying she used peppermint essential oil on cotton swabs to keep the mice away. that they don't like the smell of peppermint. I think there's a lot of things also that don't like the smell of lavender, like spiders and scorpions. There's a lot of essential oils that you can use to keep pests away for sure. Cinnamon to keep away, and cayenne to keep away ants. Please do, whenever you have a pest problem, please look up natural remedies for pest control before you go grabbing some type of spray, some type of chemical. Put lime down, then put the corn on top of the lime powder. It's an old farmer's trick. Oh, huh. Okay. Lime. Yes, lime is also good for water glassing eggs. If you happen to you have a lot of chickens and you have tons of eggs and you want to preserve them, you can preserve them for up to 2 years with lime and water in a big giant jar. I haven't done this yet because my chickens are finicky about laying eggs. I think we're not feeding them enough, but yeah, you can use lime for that. And you can get that at like Tractor Supply or hardware store. You can get lime.
And you don't even have to refrigerate them, right?
No, you just
I know, it's just
look up water glassing eggs. It's
I know I have, and it just creeps me out. I don't know if I can do that.
Am I
If you
still a
don't have,
chipmunk?
Nope. Now you sound like normal Gary. Go ahead,
Okay,
Gary.
so Zen, I want to congratulate you for doing this. It's wonderful, and I first saw you when you did the video on Dr. Oz's show, and
Oh,
also when you were at the Monsanto shareholders meeting, and, and telling everybody at the shareholders meeting how bad glyphosate is.
that was an adventure. Were you at the shareholder meeting?
Well, I wasn't there, but a friend of mine was there and told me all about it. So you've been my hero ever since then. So
Oh, thank you,
and I'm
Gary.
the one that's trying to get you and Steve Kirsch hooked up together.
Oh yes,
So-
thank you. I appreciate that very much. It'd be my
And,
pleasure.
yeah, so-
Anytime, anywhere. Yep.
My grandfather was a farmer in a little town called Sharon Grove, Kentucky. He had a 90-acre farm, and when they retired, they bought the farm and moved down there. So when we were kids, we used to go down there all the time. And also when I was very young, our elementary school had a gardening program, believe it or not, that the kids started when they were in 2nd or 3rd grade. So
Oh.
not many schools have that.
Mm-hmm.
And so I've been involved in this for forever. So
Great.
he used to use, I remember they had these outbuildings where they stored potatoes and sweet potatoes. And what they would do is put lime on the floor of the outbuilding and then put the potatoes on the lime. And it kept everything, all the insects away from the potatoes. And that's how they stored stuff. So
Somebody's asking.
lime works.
Is somebody saying is it pickling lime or is it standard lime? What kind of lime is it?
It's just the powdered lime that you put on your lawn to correct
Okay,
the
yeah.
pH.
Okay. Yeah.
Just regular powdered limestone.
Okay,
They
great.
just
And
used
so
to throw that on the floor and
eggs,
then they
for
put
the
the
eggs,
stuff
it
on
would be
top of it.
so with the eggs, it would be pickling lime, is what Samantha's saying. But for this,
Right.
for the corn, it would just be standard lime.
Yeah, or potatoes or anything you want to store without and keep the insects away.
Okay, good. So we could probably do that in our root cellar. We have a root cellar based set up underneath our stairs. When I put the potatoes in, we want to put lime down first.
Yes. And now I've
Okay.
got my camera on.
There you go. We can see your hands, not your face, though.
Oh, all right. I'm going to back up. Oh, you still can't see. My camera's not adjusted right.
Yeah.
Okay, there I am. I think. Am I
Kind
there?
of.
Oh, there I am.
There you go. Yep. Thank you,
All right,
Gary.
I'm going to scoot down in my chair a little bit so you can actually see me.
There you go. And Anne is asking, what about diatomaceous earth for insects?
That's also good.
That's also good. Yeah, just mostly in the garden is what I hear using that for, beetles and stuff on your squash plants.
Right.
That in the garden.
But lime's a lot cheaper.
Oh,
I mean, you can powdered lime is like, it's pretty inexpensive depending on where you get it.
okay. Thank you for that tip.
in the pantry, that's very effective too. And you can dust your pantry with diatomaceous earth if you're having problems with Indian meal moths. Diatomaceous earth is also good for gut health. Just don't inhale it.
Yeah, don't inhale it. Yeah.
Yeah.
What? So Anne is asking, will lime hurt your eyes or lungs? Do you know anybody? No, we don't know. Yeah, diatomaceous earth could hurt your lungs, but we're not sure about. I guess.
Yeah, I would try not to breathe it in.
Yeah, just try not to breathe it in. All right, so how about questions about, or how about Anne, how about you share about how to make green powders?
Okay, so this weekend I went down a rabbit hole and I'm actually still in it. So let me share my screen. Basically, let me start with this story.
Well, hang on 1 second. I just want to thank Mark, just in case you have to leave and you can't stay till 9:30.
Oh, yes,
Yeah,
thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mark. We really appreciate you. Take care.
Um,
Okay, thank you. Take care, Mark. All right, go ahead, Anne.
Right.
So after we did our show on things you can plant in August, I went out and I actually built a new bed and I planted broccoli and I planted carrots and I also planted a whole row of mustard greens by seed. And I must have blinked and I went out there and all these plants had exploded. And I was literally standing there thinking, what am I going to do with all this stuff? I can't eat all this. I put it in my smoothies. I make salads every day. I can't eat all this. And all of a sudden the light bulb went off and I came inside and I said, can I dehydrate mustard greens? And then I went down the rabbit hole. And I learned that you can make a greens powder. Let me share my screen now, that you can easily make a greens powder with a lot of the items that you have in your garden right now that might go to waste, or a lot of items in your yard can be foraged and are super nutritious. So here's my jar that I started. And what I did was, as you can see, these are items, these are lettuce and kale and all kinds of things, purslane. There were carrot tops, all kinds of stuff. And I would stick them in my sink and swish them around a couple times, rinse them, get them real good. And then I would put them in the salad spinner to remove as much of the moisture as possible. And then I would lay them on
Anne,
my.
hang on a second. Anne, I usually put a little bit of white vinegar in that water when it's soaking.
Oh, yes, you
It
can do
kills
that
slugs
too.
and bugs. You'll notice that the white vinegar, like a tablespoon, right?
Yeah.
Of white vinegar.
I didn't do that, but I probably should have. I'll add that into the
Thank you.
into the page.
Yeah.
Then you can just put them on your dehydrator trays and you don't have to worry about getting them all single layer, because they're going to shrink up a lot and dry up a lot. And you want to dehydrate them between 110 and 115. I would, if you can, stay closer to 110 because you want to retain most of the nutrients. So I did it about between 8 and 12 hours. I would go out and check occasionally. And once they were dried, they would look like this in the dehydrator. Now I used every other tray because they were kind of piled up here. You can use any kind of dehydrator, you guys. I wouldn't recommend, some people say you can do it in the oven. Usually the lowest an oven will go is 170, and they say you can put it in there and open up the door. I just think there's too many variables involved there. And you can get dehydrators super cheap. I would go to a thrift store and look for one if you don't have one. So anyway, so when once they were dry, I put them in my huge stainless steel bowl here in my kitchen, and then I just used my hands and I crushed them all up. And once this is done, you can either put them in your food processor, you can put them in your blender to blend them up. You can actually even leave them like this and put them in a mason jar to make and use them as sprinkles on soups and anything you're making. And you can grind them up as you want to put them in smoothies. So
You can add it into stir fry too, right? If you wanted
right, you can put it in anything.
Sort of moisturize them in a stir fry kind of thing with other, yeah.
And this will keep for up to a year. And I have been buying, I'm on a monthly auto ship for greens powder, and it's like $35 a month that I'm thinking, oh,
Yes.
I am going to. So then I started doing more research and found out that, there's a lot of items in your backyard that you guys you can pick. Like I said, purslane, which everybody thinks a weed, is super nutritious. It has all the omega-3s, lamb's quarters, things that you might think are a weed, dandelion greens, plantain, parsley. I even found that you can do violets. Violets are nutritious, and creeping Charlie, clover.
Creeping Charlie, that looks like the vine, right? It looks like a,
Creeping Charlie, yeah, it crawls across everybody's lawns. I don't know how many people who don't have Creeping Charlie. And
okay.
chickweed. In the
Oh, yeah,
spring,
chickweed. Mhm.
chickweed explodes. That's also super nutritious.
Chickweed can help you lose weight. Did you know that?
No.
Yes, it has something in it that can help you lose weight. And violets, you know, the leaf is shaped like a heart. It's
Mhm.
good for relaxing the muscles around the heart. So it helps with anxiety. So if you have some violet tea before you go to bed, it can help you with heart, you know, tension and anxiety. Yeah, Lisa.
Hi, can I just make a suggestion?
Sure.
It's better not to grind it into the powder, at least all of it, because you break down the chemical constituents and they're not retained as if when you dry it and you leave it in the whole leaf form. And so if you can store it that way and then maybe grind half of it and leave the other half, until you're ready to use it.
Yeah, they
So,
say to grind up that stuff you're gonna use up within a month. And the reason why this whole jar is full is because I took my other greens powder that I purchased and dumped it in there. Otherwise, I would only had maybe this bottom part is what I probably got a cup from all these trays.
yeah. Okay.
It
And you want to
really,
keep it away from the light and the heat
yeah.
Yes.
and the moisture. Yeah, you want to make sure you store them in a good place.
Yeah, I just took that outside because it looks nicer than my kitchen.
Yeah.
But so then I went down another rabbit hole and I've been doing a little research here on, as I was talking before, some of the things that you can dehydrate, and you can actually, even if you want to, dehydrate the actual broccoli plants. Although I can't imagine that your broccoli heads would get that far. I know I would like to eat them as a whole food, but you can do the leaves and turnip greens. And so then last night I was watching a bunch of really great videos. Oh, and I also wanted to talk about one of the things I found in your garden, and you need to be really careful. And I did put a caution warning down here that, to check when you're eating these items that they're going to be okay. So I put, as with any new food, try a small amount, see how you react to it, especially with forage greens.
Mhm.
And as I was going through my yard this morning, I found this huge plant, and I used that app that Zen talked about, Picture This, and I have a link to it here. And that app's fantastic. It was a week's trial and forgot about it, and I got billed for it. It's like 20 some dollars.
Yeah, it's worth it. It's totally
It's
worth it.
totally worth it. I had another app that this one blows out of the water, and I found out that I had this big, beautiful plant. It wasn't even there last week, and it was American pokeweed. And all parts of that plant are toxic, and you have to dig up every single bit of it with gloves and dispose of it.
Oh, I
So,
didn't know you have to use gloves to pull it up.
because all parts of the plant are toxic.
Wow.
And they said if you have any kind of cuts in your skin or anything, that some of these toxins could leach in. I mean,
Ooh.
and
What-
the
you know what
funny
a
thing
side effect-
was,
do you know what the side effect would be from being poisoned by American pokeweed?
there's a lot of gastric distress. Death is one of them.
Great. Okay.
You know what's funny is they say, well, you can eat it if you cook it. It won't make it quite as toxic. I'm sorry.
I'm not eating it. Yeah.
No, so tomorrow I have to go out and dig it up. And the taproot on this thing, actually the taproot is the most toxic part of the plant. And it'll tell you all this stuff in this Picture This app. So then I also found a couple great articles. Morning Chores, which I have mentioned before, has a great article, 28 edible weeds you can find in your own backyard. And Rob Greenfield, I watched a bunch of his videos, and he's got a great page on his website, Foraging Resources for Beginners. So there's a lot of food out there, people. And this is something I think we should all get interested in, because this is knowledge that could come in horribly handy in the future.
Yeah,
And-
the lamb's quarter weed. I don't. And why don't you stop screen sharing and look up some of these? Look up lamb's quarter. Look up, a couple of them that people might not know about, American pokeweed, and then share pictures of those. Lamb's quarter it's got a beautiful silvery finish to it when there's dewdrops on it. It's beautiful. and it becomes a giant bush. And when you pull off the leaves, which are small and they feel kind of fuzzy, it doesn't feel like something you'd want to eat. But when you cook them, they taste just like spinach. And that's the weed that I think it was Joe Roberts, who was one of our previous calls, said got a lot of people through the Depression days because it's packed full of nutrients and it's a weed. It was just found, just growing everywhere. So yeah, that's American.
That's American pokeweed.
And the birds love the berries. They are toxic, but one thing I learned was that Native Americans or indigenous tribes people, they would take one berry and use it as lipstick. So you can use it as a lipstick. It's not so toxic that you're going to die, but you don't want to eat a bunch of them. That you'll be sick. Yeah, it's a stain. They use it as a dye and a stain. The berry.
Well, they're saying, I just read today, they're saying that they're recommending people no longer use it as a stain.
Oh, okay. Can you look up lamb's quarter?
I am right here.
Okay, good.
And this is one everybody's going to recognize because I can't think that anybody would not have this in their yard. And people don't realize this is one of the plants they say kept people alive during the Depression.
Yep, lamb's quarter. Yeah. It gets to be a giant bush. Mine is huge right now. I've harvested from it like 4 times. It just keeps on giving. It tastes just like spinach.
And Mark, I think, said that it's a sign of healthy soil. So I'm very happy when I see lamb's quarters, and I always think of Mark when I see lamb's quarters.
Yeah, me too. And then the leaves get very dark green. That's a young plant. The
Yes.
leaves get very dark green. Yeah, very nutritious. So what's another one that people want to know? What does it look like?
Well, I think everybody knows what dandelion looks like.
Yeah. How about purslane? That's a common
yes.
weed that is very nutritious. It has the highest number of omega-3s, I think,
Yes.
of any plant. So if you have a vegan in your household, you want to, and you can, like, I planted purslane this year, so I'm starting to get some purslane in. The lamb's quarters is a weed. It's just, here's the thing. Try to not pull all your weeds in your garden. Like, these things will just pop up. So a lot of times when I see a weed growing, I just let it grow to see what is that, right? And sometimes it's something I want. Sometimes it's something I don't want. This is purslane.
So I had this growing under two of my beds this year, and I talked about this, and I believe when Mark was on, that I just let it go, and it was like a living mulch because it doesn't grow real high, and it just made a carpet under all my plants, and it's just. And so this, I pick off these leaves, I put them in my salads, I bring them in, I put them in my smoothies. It's a very useful food.
Yeah, and they're saying well, I guess you can't find another picture where it grows big, but they're saying, Frankie's saying it grows out like an octopus or anise. It branches out in all different directions. So yeah, good ground cover. And you just pick off those little leaves. You can add them to salad. You can put them in your smoothie. You can cook that. You can add them to cooking food. And
yeah, so here it's kind of spreading out.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, Lisa's saying it's a lemony taste and it's a bit slimy. So I usually mix it with other with other greens. Yeah. So I can't really taste it that much, but yeah, it is a little lemony. You're right.
Also, I wanted to share with you just and I had already showed this to Zen, but I'll share it with everybody else because this is what my kitchen counter behind my sink looks like right now.
Oh my gosh, so many tomatoes.
And I took half of those today and cored them and froze them, and it's now been replaced and looks like just like that, and probably maybe a little bigger because the tomatoes are really coming in. But yeah, I don't know, maybe next year I'm not going to plant 75 tomato plants.
Yeah, it's a bit much. I have like 30 of them, and I'm out of I have yellow pear tomatoes coming out of my ears. I've done a basket like this that weighs, when I weighed it was 27 pounds of tomatoes, and I think I've harvested that much 3 or 4 times.
Oh, I do can them. Samantha said can them. I freeze them, and I have probably 12 to 15 gallon bags in my freezer. My friend Michelle comes over, brings hers, and we do like a weekend of, because this year we want to do different, like stewed tomatoes and whole tomatoes, and I still have tomato sauce from 2 years ago that I'm still eating.
Yeah, I
Oh.
did I did the recipe that Ann gave us. It's on the website, Neighborhood Food Network site,
Oh.
where you just take your cherry tomatoes or my yellow pear tomatoes or other tomatoes and cut them up, but you got to core them, right? And cut them up and then put them on a tray, 400 degrees, a little olive oil, and roast them for, I don't know, I think it's like 25 minutes or something like that, right, Ann?
Yeah,
25
you'll
minutes.
see them bursting in the
brown.
oven. Use parchment paper so that
Yeah,
it,
parchment. Yep. And then you take all the juices and you put them in a pot and you, immersion blender with it. And so the peels are still on there, but because you're using an immersion blender, you get a delicious tomato sauce and or soup. That's before you don't use the immersion.
so
blender.
this is right after I put them into the pot with the sauteed onions and garlic and
Yeah.
the spices and everything.
Parsley is
And
good and tomato
Then
sauce.
this is after I hit them with the immersion blender. And then I let it cool down and I put it in containers and then it goes into the freezer. You can it, but I found that I like it better when I just freeze it. So,
Yep.
but this is what I grow my cherry tomatoes for. It is, the flavor is so concentrated after they're roasted. It's just the best pasta sauce.
Yeah. Really, really good. Making you
Michelle,
hungry yet,
Michelle
guys?
will call me up and say, "Can I come over and pick some cherry tomatoes?" 'Cause she said didn't plant enough. And every other day I get enough to make a batch. Every other day, I get over 3 pounds of cherry tomatoes.
Oh my gosh, you are making sauce all
And
day
you
long.
guys, you could use other tomatoes. I would just cut them up and roast them.
Yeah.
But
So you don't have to peel them. I did that one time for tomato sauce and it was very good when you peel them and you just cook them down for a long time. It was very good, but you don't have to if you're doing it the roasting way. You roast it and then you use the immersion blender.
yeah,
And
it's super easy to do.
tastes
And
it, otherwise the sauce has like these peels and then the separate mushy part and it's like the texture is weird. It's not.
so the good thing about freezing your paste tomatoes, that the ones that you're going to can, is you freeze them when they start to thaw out. And I actually saw on a video today where she said not only does she core it, but she crisscrosses them with the knife. And supposedly, so when they thaw out, then the skins, once they start to thaw out, the skins are super easy to peel off. You don't have to blanch them. So if you're going to peel fresh tomatoes, you would blanch them for, I don't know, 30 seconds until you can see the skin start to wrinkle. And then you take them out of the water, throw them in an ice bath, and then you can peel the skins off easily that way. But nobody's ever going to have enough tomatoes to harvest at one time to do a big canning thing, which is why we freeze them.
Okay, and then you can't
Why core the
Mhm.
tomatoes? Because Frankie, it's like I didn't do that one year, and it was such a pain when they started thawing out to core them, because you want to core them anyway before you can them. But as one lesson I learned, so now I'm coring everything, and I have a strawberry huller that I use, and it works
Oh.
great.
So Lisa's saying dehydrate those tomatoes. So now do you cut them up and then just put them in the dehydrator? Is that what you do?
Yeah,
Thin
you could slice them. I did.
Just slice them.
thin?
Oh my God, they're so good. It's like candy. If you have a lot of those, just slice them into thick slices and then
Okay.
just dehydrate them.
Okay. Core them first, I'm guessing. And then, but you don't have to peel them, just core them and slice them.
Do
Yeah.
you store them in olive oil or you just dry?
Just dried. Yeah.
So I did that with a
I-
bunch of cherry tomatoes, and I sliced them all up and did a whole couple trays of that. And I have a big quart jar of sun-dried tomatoes, and the flavors are just so concentrated.
What do you do with them afterwards? Do you put them in soups? Do you eat them straight? How do you eat sun-dried tomatoes?
You can rehydrate them and then put them in pastas. I mean, you'll
Okay.
see lots of recipes with sun-dried tomatoes, soup, stews.
Okay. All right. Yeah, you're right. Very dense flavor in sauce with sun-dried tomatoes. Samantha's saying we core, cut in half, de-seed, roast them. It makes it easy to take off the skins, and then we dehydrate the skins and make a powder. Yes, yeah, I remember Ann saying that too. You can use the skins for powder. We want to use everything from the garden, folks, everything. And when you, for instance, when you have scraps, you put them out in a bucket. If you have chickens, you can use the scraps you know, from your or even chicken poop or whatever, you can use these scraps of whatever you're producing to grow worms, to grow, you know, flies will lay little maggots and those worms will then feed your chickens. You have free chicken feed. So just, you know, think about the whole cycle of what's going on, what you're
Oh,
growing.
wait. That just reminded me of something. I don't know why. Oh, because I thought of calendula. Now I have thousands of calendula seeds that I have been saving. And calendula is a marigold, but it's got really skin soothing properties.
Yeah.
And if I was going to put my address in here, and if people want to send me a self-addressed stamped envelope, I would love to send everybody some calendula seeds. And you'll have calendulas for the rest of your life because they reseed prolifically. I put them in, I steep the calendula flowers in olive oil, and then I use them in body balms and making soap. And
the best body balms are made out of calendula. It's wonderful for your skin. My husband had poison ivy, and after it started to go down, you know, to heal it, we put calendula on it, and it's so much better. Yeah, calendula is fabulous. And it's really easy to use. You just dry it and put it in oil, olive oil, and let it soak for 6 weeks or something like that, right, Anne? To make
yeah, so here's a jar of the flowers that I have dried.
Look how pretty.
And I have 4 quarts out on my table outside that are sitting in olive oil right now, steeping in the hot sun, and they're ready to be strained. And then I put that in the fridge, and then I use that when I make body balm. I use it when I make my lip balms, and I need to get all these recipes up on the website because they're all natural ingredients,
Yeah,
and they're
and
fantastic.
people want to know. People want to know how to, it's very inspiring, Anne.
I think if people realize how easy it is to make your own stuff, the amount of money you would save.
Yeah, this is what we want to do in the Neighborhood Food Network, is bridge that gap between what we're thinking in our head how hard it is, and actually trying it and doing it and saying, oh my gosh, it's so easy. Like, for instance, when I've been making goat cheese, where we stopped milking because such little milk was coming out, but when I was making goat cheese, it was so easy. You just warm up the goat's milk to warm temperature on your wrist. You put in a half a cup of lemon juice and, you know, a quart of goat's milk, half a cup of lemon juice and a tablespoon of vinegar. You let it sit for an hour, and then you put it in a goat cheese strainer and mix in some salt, some cheese salt, and you let it hang for an hour. You can milk your goats in the morning and have goat cheese by lunch. It's so easy.
I wish I had some goats to milk.
I always thought it would be so hard, but you know, the hardest part is making sure you've got a goat that's not going to kick you when you're milking. One of them is just, I'm like, okay, I'm done with her. She's just too kicky. There's another one that's got nice big teats and easy to milk, and you know, so we'll you know, get her pregnant again, and you know, give her a rest first, but get her pregnant again and still milk her. She's really easy.
So I want to share a picture of
calendula vinegar. Very nice, just with like probably apple cider vinegar, right? And very good.
This is a calendula seed. Isn't Mother Nature just the coolest ever?
Oh, amazing.
Isn't that? I'm still dumbstruck by it. I'm become a seed saver that it's just amazing. But like I said, I put my address down. I put my address in the chat.
So send Anne a self-addressed stamped envelope if you want calendula seeds. She's giving them away.
I guess I sent some seeds to Frankie, and they all got crushed, but they were big bean seeds. So I don't know if we need to do a padded envelope because they're not very big. I mean,
I would just write on it fragile.
Yeah.
You don't want them crushed. Yeah, write fragile on it before you send them. And that way they won't put it through that roller machine, you know, hand stamp fragile, something like that.
And
we don't see your address. Maybe you just send it to me, but everyone can't see your address. Can you please put your address in? And then we're going to have to sign off. It's 9:33. Hey, I have a question. Anybody who joined the Neighborhood Food Network, did you get seeds from Baker Creek?
Not yet.
Baker Creek said they sent out seed packets to the Neighborhood Food Network hosts.
I did. I wonder who sent me that.
Great.
Yes, I got some. I got 3 packs of seeds.
Okay, what kind of seeds?
It's cabbage and I don't know who sent me those.
I haven't checked my mail today. Maybe mine's out there.
Yeah, Baker Creek is one of our sponsors. They're a wonderful, wonderful company. Let's see, cabbage. What else?
Okay.
What is that? I can't, poppies?
Poppy,
Oh, good.
Poppy Swansdown, Baker Creek, Heirloom Seeds.
Nice.
Swansdown Poppy. I know my camera's terrible. And a small baby watermelon.
Okay, wow, awesome. So thank you to Baker Creek for sending seeds out to
Yes.
our river coast. The idea is to share those seeds. So, you know, and a lot of people can only grow one watermelon anyway in their garden. They just take up so much darn space. They're hogs.
Mine are only this big. They're only supposed to be,
You're gonna
they're only
harvest
supposed to be like the picture that she is the picture. I think they might be the same watermelon.
the
but
mini
for-
ones. Oh,
for
the mini
some
ones.
reason,
Okay.
They're not growing, so I'm kind of sad, but
Well, maybe they're supposed to be small. Maybe they're okay, exactly the way they are.
no, not that small.
There's a date on the back to sell by 12/31/22. So you want
Okay.
to plant them either that or sell, you know, they're
Seeds can
Well,
last.
you guys,
They can,
Zen
but yeah.
Zen sent me some old seeds from Baker Creek that we had years ago, and I planted a bunch of them, and I have fruit about to start picking fruit off of them. So
Yeah, so they can last years.
Yeah.
Yeah, just as long as you're not like in high heat or, you know what I mean? They can last for a long time.
although
All
I
right,
hear
well,
spinach seeds are not good, that spinach seeds don't keep well, but all
Spinach-
right. Well, thanks
everybody
everybody.
can everybody see Ann's address there?
Yeah, and I'll send it out in the update, I guess.
Yep.
I can
Send it
send
out.
it in the email
Mm-hmm.
because I have plenty of seeds to share, and it's all about.
Well, I don't know. I don't know if you want to send your address out to everybody people that weren't on the call. I don't know the email list.
All right. Well, has everybody got my email address that's on the call?
Please take it if you want it, and then send her a self-addressed stamped envelope. Maybe put an extra stamp on there just in case, you know, the weight or something. I don't know, or maybe not.
Oh, and I just learned too, there's a little 3 buttons, you can save your chat in your little Zoom app.
Yes.
Yep.
Click the 3 buttons, 3
Yep.
dots in there, and you can save this chat.
It's great, and you get a lot of resources from our very knowledgeable folks that are on the call. All
Oh,
of you.
here's my email address.
Great, and Michelle can contribute to seeds too. Yep. So, Michelle, if you want to put, you know, your email address or address there, so people can send you a self-addressed stamped envelope, and you
Well,
can.
Michelle's my friend. She's over here all the time.
Oh, okay, that one. Okay, yeah, okay. All right, no, we don't have a seed library yet, but Tammy started a seed swapping Facebook page, and on our, we will send that out in our email. Okay, Ann, can we do that? The link to the Facebook page for seed swapping that Tammy Rain Mom started.
Okay.
She was our guest talking about the hoop house.
Yeah, I was actually gonna contact her today and see if she could be on the call, but next week we're gonna be talking about seed saving, you guys, so.
Okay, good. We're gonna go in depth on that. It's good time because things are starting to come to seed. All right, you guys are awesome. We could talk all night, but we gotta go. Thank you very much, everybody. Joan and Carla and Brenda and Gary and Samantha and Anne Marie, everybody, Janet. Thank you very much for being on the call. Take care. Good night.
Bye-bye, everybody.